What is one secret your parents can never know? My mom read through my Facebook messages and found out that I had sex with 3 people. She called me a slut 4 years after. She never needs to know what that number actually is. That party I threw in high school when you guys were out of town for the weekend that you found out about due to my snitch as neighbors. Wasn't just some guys drinking beer and playing poker, it was actually an ecstasy fueled orgy. And yes, your bed was used. What the duck kind of high school do you go to ? A rich one. I can never tell them that my number one goal as a parent is to handle relationship issues differently than they did. They went through an extremely messy divorce when I was 8 and my only memory of them together is them screaming at each other and my sister and I hiding in our rooms. Then it was 10+ years of them talking shit about each other to us, putting us in the middle of all their arguments, and giving us a huggy guilt trip whenever they felt like we were spending more time with the other one than with them. It's been 20 years now and my mom will still talk shit about my dad and stepmom every once in a while, despite me asking her over and over to stop. I am happily married, but if I were to ever get divorced I will never put my daughter in the middle of arguments, speak badly about her father to her, or make her feel guilty for having a relationship with him. It's the number one thing I learned from my parents and I think they would be devastated to realize the true effect it has had on me. My sister and I were reading through my mom's old high school yearbook, and we kept seeing everyone's sign saying something along the lines of, "Congrats. You and X are perfect together. X is not our dad." And we had never heard X's name mentioned before. After a little more digging we found out she had married X right out of high school, divorced, then married our father. Neither of us really cared, but it was still a huge shock she hasn't told us now that we're both in our mid-20s. Edit, I subconsciously used X as the name, not even realizing it came from the most popular story on Reddit at the moment. When you guys went to Hawaii I put Milo, cat, down. He was sick, in incredible pain, couldn't eat or drink, couldn't even move to get to the litter box. When you left on vacation he was too weak to even yowl in pain anymore. I couldn't stand to see that cat in so much pain and so afraid, so I did the only thing I could do to help him end his life humanely. My parents were 100% against putting down a pet regardless of how much it is suffering, so they'd be beyond mad if they knew this. When I was younger I read in my mom's journal that she had an abortion before she was pregnant with me. She doesn't know that I know, and I'm not sure how she would react. I'm just glad they decided to keep the second pregnancy. My sister, stepbrother, and I are all adults now, ranging from mid-20s to early 30s. I was the oldest, so I had already moved out by the time my sister was a teenager. We were all out to dinner with our parents recently, exchanging funny stories back and forth. Then this came up. Stepbrother, to my sister, I guess we're all old enough for this story now. So, remember how you would call me to see if our parents were awake yet? Sister, we are not old enough for that story. That's where it ended. But I assume my sister was sneaking out at night and calling my stepbrother in the morning to see if it was safe to sneak back in, and despite being in her late 20s now, still doesn't want my parents to know about it. Edit, yeah, Ilmatherdicus need Jesus. That one of my childhood friends and I used to play with each other's penises. It was fun, and we liked it. I'm a married, straight guy, but this information would shorten their lifespan undoubtedly. When I got engaged, my very Catholic mother whispered to me, "Has he tried to kiss you yet?" I'm a semi-famous dominatrix, and have been since 3 years before she asked that question. My dad thinks I lost my virginity earlier than I actually did. He thought he'd walked in on me post 6 with my GF at the time, but we'd actually just been play fighting. And the moment he walked in was the moment she decided to put the strap for her top back on her shoulder. After that I find out my dad's told half of my family about this. And despite me trying to tell him I hadn't done anything, he claimed to have believed me, but didn't. So he'll never know when I actually did, because he believes a lie. Edit. I was 17/18 when the play fight happened. I lost my vagine some years later in my early 20s. When we were staying at a friend's place on holiday, Miso and I accidentally broke her guest bed. Like, one of the legs gave way and the whole thing collapsed. It was an ultra cheap metal frame, and so found a meat cleaver and we banged the bejesus out of that bed to get it back into shape. To no avail. I had to ring my friend and confess. Due to the conservative nature of my parents and their firm beliefs, we have allowed them to believe that we are chaste and good and would never actually have sex. You are gross. We haven't lied. But we have certainly been guilty of omission. We are getting married this year. And my friend with the broken bed is a bridesmaid. And is working on her speech. So, when I was 6 or 7 we had Christmas with the extended family. One of my uncles was there. And I was always a bit afraid of him because he had done some time for a drug charge and just gotten out within the last year or 2. Anyway, I walk into the kitchen at one point. And he is there with this giant wedge of cheese. He looks up and asks if I wanted any. I nod. Because I fucking love cheese. He says okay. But you cannot tell your parents because you'll ruin your dinner, they will get mad at me, and he slices me a few pieces. We eat in silence and then I leave. Convinced that I was an accomplice in some terrible act with my ex-uncle. To this day, I have never told my parents. As to what would happen if they found out. Well, then they would know that the reason I didn't eat that one Christmas dinner in the early 90s was because I had already filled up on expensive cheese. Replaced bourbon from a priceless bottle of liquor with Evan Williams when I was 15. I found out later my parents were saving the bottle for their 50th anniversary. It was given to them by my great grandpa at their wedding. Still have 23 years to break the news. You have the internet. And 23 years to find a replacement. Put together a bangers collection of rare bourbon and an eloquent apology speech. I signed a lease for an apartment in Florida before I came back home from my internship down at Disney. I came back home and never went back down. I paid for it for a year. My roommates wouldn't let me have someone sublease. It was a horrible situation and I ducked up. I don't need to hear it from my parents on how stupid and young I was. Boy. I'm pretty sure the statute of limitations are up on this one. So why not? I was a JR. In high school. And had some friends into lawn parties who were seniors. But I couldn't really join them because my family was pretty poor and neither them or I could afford a computer for me to use at that time. So one day my older friends gave me one of their older PCs. Pentium 3, with a couple parts missing, RAM, HDD, that I could build out for myself. Now about 15 years later it's turned out to be a great jumping off point because now I'm a successful system administrator and love working in the IT field. And I owe it in many ways to that first computer I learned to build back up from scratch and make my own. Only they didn't give me that computer. We stole it from the high school. Sorry not sorry. I spent the night in jail for possession of marijuana 5 years ago. Not a big deal really, but it would heal my mom if she found out I have been in a jail cell. My dad always tells me I was so whipped by my girlfriend back in high school, and the example he always uses is that one time she told me to change out of my sweatshirt. What really happened is that she pointed out the huge cum stain that she left on my sweatshirt the night before, and I figured I should change it to avoid awkwardness on our day out with my family. All the drugs I've tried. Or other. How many times I've tried them. They know I tried some shit and I know they tried some shit. But I'd like to keep it vague. Why? Cause my mom is always worried about me. And she can't help it. I'm not that close to my parents. But as an adult I'm a lot mellower and recognize the fact that they're nice people who did their best. So, there's nothing that would be catastrophic for me if they found it out. But I'd be a little glum about the unnecessary trauma it'd put them through if they ever found out how many people I've slept with. How many of them were dudes? Or the sheer quantity of drugs I did at one point. This happened in my freshman year of high school. So one of my friends got a hold of some weed. And I haven't tried it before, so we had the stupid idea to smoke it. He came over along with some other friends of mine. The original plan was to go to forest near my house to smoke it. But it was cold, so we didn't want to. One of us wanted to smoke it on my porch. But I disagreed. I forgot how. But we came up with the stupidest idea and hotbox in my bathroom. Keep in mind my parents were gonna be home from work in an hour. And if they found out, my life would be done. We quickly made a shitty bong out of a Gatorade bottle. Then removed everything from my bathroom. We lit up the weed and smoked for like 10 minutes. Once we were done, we quickly cleaned up and emptied a whole Axe bottle in the bathroom. My friends, being stoned as duck, left. I went back upstairs to check the bathroom and it smelled like flat out weed up. I tried to use every possible thing to get the smell out, but it didn't work. I called my parents. They have the same job and they said they were 15 minutes away. I knew I was ducked. Now keep in mind my parents are extremely strict, and if they caught me I would be over. This is when I thought of the stupidest thing any sane human would think. Burn my bathroom down. I ended up lighting some towels on fire and trying my hardest to burn the sink area. It ended up catching on fire, but it was slow. I quickly called 911 and 3 minutes later fire department. I see fire trucks out my house. They took care of the fire and my parents came home shocked. Half of my bathroom was charred and the door knocked down. Fire department said it was probably an electrical current from the outlet that burned a towel. I slept that night thinking how stupid I was and what I just did. To this day my parents don't know. TLDR, hotboxed in my bathroom and set fire to it to get the smell out and prevent from being caught. Parents still think it was an accident. After my sis died, I locked myself in her room and went through everything alone before her friends or my parents went through her stuff to pack it away or give it to her friends. I found naked pics, empty bottles of alcohol and a letter she had wrote, but I guess never gave to her then boyfriend, telling him the story of how she was raped as a younger teenager. I threw everything like that out but kept that letter. It's been 12 years and I just found the letter again as I was packing up to make room for baby. I can't bring myself to throw it away. That I didn't get laid off from a really good job my dad once got me. I got fired for ducking one of the office girls in the bathroom and was caught by the CEO. When I told them that I was sleeping over at my friend's house for 3 days and that we had a lot of activities planned out in celebration of our successes in our exams. I actually went to Barcelona, then France, then Italy. This will come too late to ever be seen. That I was homeless for more than 2 years. During the recession from 2008 to sometime in 2010. I lost my job. And eventually was kicked out of my apartment. I had a 10-year-old car that was paid off. So I lived out of that until I found a series of jobs cleaning houses. Working in a recreational center part-time. Parents lived 1,000 miles away and I managed to keep a mailing address at a friend's so they never realized. It would have killed them that I didn't want to ask for help. I wanted to do it on my own. I cross-dress. For context, I had talked to my parents for consult about my interest in becoming trans, MTF. And they literally just shut me out from everything. Like, no internet, no school. I couldn't even talk to friends or family until they somehow held any remote feelings for it. It took a week of home boot camping on why no one would ever accept a transgender. Not even my parents. And how I would be alone for the rest of my life. Now I can't own anything that has a girl remotely in it, otherwise my parents will think I'm contaminated again. After a year of a bit of self-discovery, I just found out that I like pretending to be a girl with a pen 15. So I got that going for me. This may be a little more serious than most of the other replies I'm seeing. But I can never ever let my parents know how many times I've been sexually assaulted. It would absolutely destroy my relationship with them. And they would never look at me the same way. I feel that my father would blame me for them. And think much less of me. And my mother would just see me as a victim from then on. And likely develop some sort of guilt complex because she'd think she had done something wrong that I ended up in those situations. I say this here on Reddit only because it's nice to mention it to somebody. That many years ago I found that cigarette pack in your drawer. Dad, I'll never tell anyone that you smoke once in a while when life is too much to handle. Maybe when your 38-year-old patient dies of heart attack. Or when a mother of 3 gets a very bad skin cancer. Or when your daughter is depressed and seems to have lost any will to live. You've been good enough to stop smoking 20 smokes a day after 30 years of Krilla habit. And I'm proud of you. I can never tell you because you always want to be perfect in our eyes. You are not perfect, but you still are a great doctor and a great dad. Thank you. Parent here with 2 grown daughters. What if I told you that your parents already know about half of all the bad shit you think is a deep dark secret? We pick out battles.